Welcome back to Steel Division Normandy 44. So, today what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at my second infantry deck that I used in the previous upload, episode number 17. And yeah, like I said in that episode, we're going to see what I used. So, let's start this off with the Recon tab. So as you can see here, I have the 2 units of Marauders in the 4 GPAs. I basically bring those because, well, they are freaking awesome. Putting your Marauders on return fire with the 45 ACP machine guns, and then just using the little 66mm heat bazookas to take out enemy tanks is fantastic. You throw them in some woods, tanks never even see it coming, and boom. And the beautiful thing about these, because they're in the Recon tab, they don't push the front line back or forward, so they don't affect the front line at all, basically, which means your enemies or your opponents typically never know that they're even there. Next, I have 5 units of Scouts in Phase B. They come with the M3 Scout, which has a 12.7mm machine gun. This is a pretty decent vehicle for fire support against other infantry, but it does not last long against anything motorized, mechanized, 20mm and above, and it pops really fast. And finally, in Phase B, I have 2 of the M8 Scout vehicles. They come with 37mm main guns, a 7.62mm, and a 12.7mm. I believe one's a coax and one is the vehicle commander's gun. This thing is fantastic when you're pushing with tanks. It's not really recommended. I mean, it's a decent fire support for your infantry, but it's better off rolling with your tanks, rolling maybe behind a jumbo or something like that. I mean, of course, we don't have jumbos in this deck, but if we look, you know, your M4A1 Rhino or something like that. So there you go. That's Recon. So let's go ahead and move on to infantry. Well, actually, you know what I'm going to say? First, I'll talk about why I didn't bring Recon, Scouts, or any more M8s. And the reason, because, well, Marauders are just too good. Scouts are just there in case, for some reason or another, I run out of Marauders, which has yet to happen. You only get 4, and I have never lost all 4 in a game. So those are just kind of extra. And then, of course, the M8 is for the tanks. Infantry. So under the infantry tab, we start out with rifles in a Ranger Assaults card here. So you get 3 units of Ranger Assaults. They come with the napalm. I usually turn off their rifles and their machine guns and just advance with napalm because you want them to be pushing on infantry or light vehicles because they do actually do quite a bit of damage to light vehicles. But man, they wreck infantry. Another unit of Ranger Assault in A, and a medium machine gun, the M1919 medium machine gun unit. Now all of these are coming with just generic vehicles, the ones that disappear when you basically unload. So I'm not really going to talk about those too much. The machine guns I always bring in. They provide excellent cover for your Ranger Assault and your rifles. In Phase B, we have more rifles, a rifle leader, which, if you noticed, we don't have a rifle leader in Phase A, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But we have rifles, which come with, well, basically they're good anti-infantry. They have 12 strength, which is pretty decent for infantry. They're same rifles as in Phase A, just a different vehicle, I believe. Yes, the one comes with a GMC, the other comes with a Duck W. So, rifle leaders, those are awesome. I actually like the rifle leaders a lot because they do come with a 66mm heat bazooka, and so those are good for anti-tank. Plus, they do a pretty decent job in cities, especially considering they're a leader with strength 10 against infantry is what I meant. They do a good job in the cities against infantry. Next, I have the Phase B M2 heavy machine gun. This thing is actually pretty fantastic. It's got an accuracy of 6, rate of fire of 214, and 9 HE damage. This thing tears infantry to shreds. So as soon as I get to Phase B, I usually try to get at least one of these in any locations where I'm having trouble with infantry. The M1919 medium machine gun is pretty good, but with an accuracy of 5 compared to 6, well, I can just do it like this. Why don't I just do it this way? Accuracy of 5 compared to 6, a rate of fire of 258 compared to 214, which is better, but the HE of 7 on the M1919 does not compare to that of 9 on the heavy machine guns. And finally, we have another unit of 8 rifles in Phase C. At this point in Phase C, I usually have enough infantry out. Sometimes I need to bring more in, but these guys are just in case, because there have been games where I've been wiped out with infantry. So these are just the same as your other riflemen, just again, they have the GMC, the same as Phase B. So yeah, lots and lots and lots of rifles, only one rifle leader, and as many ranger assaults as I can bring. There are unfortunately no more in this in the deck. Next, we're looking at tanks. Tanks in Phase A, I don't really like to rely on tanks, especially with 2nd Infantry, because they're honestly not that great. I do have an M4A1DD, which is okay. It's got a 75 millimeter, a 7.62, and a 12.7 millimeter machine gun. It does a decent amount of work. It can put in some work on infantry with the 4 HE from the main gun, and then of course the 2 machine guns. The AP-10 is okay, but at any level of range against Germans, you're typically going to be outgunned, and this thing is going to pop really, really fast. Phase B, we're bringing in a Command M4A1, and usually I only bring this in the event of late game if I have a bunch of M4A1s or M4A1 Rhinos. Basically, I only use those, well, if I'm pushing pretty hard with armor. That rarely happens, but when it does happen, I believe actually in the last game it did happen, I bring it in to kind of boost up their veterancy. It's pretty much 75 millimeter, 7.62s, 2 of them though, and 12.7 millimeters, 9 armor. It's the same as all the other M4s. Here's one question I have for you guys, actually, speaking of all the M4s being the same. M4A1, and then let's go ahead and check the M4A1 Rhino. What is, oh, there it is. Okay, so the Rhino has 12 more armor, and in the front. That's not too bad. Actually, 12 armor in the front's pretty decent, but with a weak main gun, and if you go up against anything like Panther Gs, this thing is toast. So you really have to play careful with these guys. I couldn't quite remember what the difference was between the two, but yeah, it's the armor thing. So you have 12 armor on the Rhino, 9 on the M4A1. Basically, you're paying 10 extra points for 3 extra armor, which, yeah, I guess that's okay. So not a lot of action going on. I actually have an empty tank tab, and I usually don't bring in tanks unless we're really dominating, so not too much going on there. Now, support. This is where I want to go back to what I was talking about with infantry. I have in Phase A, the M3 Command. Unfortunately, this thing doesn't have any weaponry, but because I'm not bringing in any command units or leader units in Phase A for infantry, I usually come in and bring 1 M3 Command to kind of drive around with them and keep behind some trees. So that is the purpose for the M3 Command. I'm still kind of up in the air. I might end up taking it out, but still I don't... I need to practice with it a few more games. We have also in Phase A, we have 2 of the T30 heavy, basically they're half tracks. They come with a 75 millimeter heat gun with 4 accuracy, which is not too great, but it does have 8 AP and 9 HE, which is very good. It has allowed me to put in some work on a couple of tanks before when they've gotten too close to a tree line or something, and I was able to sneak out and fire off a shot at them. So those are definitely very nice, and the HE, of course, helps my infantry advance up because, as we talked about earlier, these are all the vehicles that just disappear. So unless you have your medium machine guns covering every single unit of infantry, it does help to bring in a support vehicle. I do have the M7DD. This is a 105 millimeter, accuracy 3, which is pretty poor, but 15 HE damage. I'm still up in the air on this one as well. It has done some work for me in a couple games. It does a pretty good job of suppressing, actually it does an amazing job of suppressing infantry. Has very good range early game, most tanks early game only get to about 1,000 meters, so this coming in at 1,200 allows me to keep it way back in the back and lob some pretty hefty shots. And then of course it has the two 12.7 millimeter machine guns. So this one, jury's still out on it. I've had games where it's done amazing. I've had games where it's been lackluster, so who knows. And then of course in Phase B, the only thing we have in the support tab are two of the Duck W's, the supply ones. They bring in 1,500 or 15,000 supply, and well, they are what they are. They just resupply your units. So those, of course, are always being used in every single game. Next, anti-tank. This is where I have quite a bit invested. I have Phase A. I have the three 57mm guns being brought in by Jeeps. So once they are dropped, they do lose their transport, but they are a 57mm with, whoops, get out of here, with accuracy of 5, a 9 rate of fire, and 11 AP damage. So these are actually pretty good, especially early game. Late game, when the bigger tanks start coming in, you need to keep them hidden or keep them on return fire so that if the tanks come close, you can, you know, pop a shot and hopefully get them in one shot. Otherwise, they're pretty risky at long range against anything, you know, around the 9-10 armor value. Next, we have 2 units of bazookas. Don't really know if I need 2 units. Last game, I'm sure you guys recall, I had tons of bazookas in the tree line. I may end up dropping one of these units and doing something else. Not quite sure what. Maybe bring in another unit of 76mm M5 guns, but we'll see. So far I do like them. They're pretty good, but if you're out in the open or something like that, they're not going to be very effective, and they are kind of situational. So I may end up dropping one of the 2 units. Next in Phase B. Oh yeah, and those come in Phase B. So next in Phase B, we have 2 units of the 76mm M5 gun. These things are fantastic. I really like these. They have 1,200 meter range, 14 AP damage. So if anything is within 1,200 meter range on them and they get a nice connecting hit, it's pretty much a one-shot pop. Even, you know, oh gosh, what are they? Even Panther Gs. Panther Gs, they get too close, they come around a tree line, and you're, you know, 500-600 meters away, that thing is done. And so I really, really like these. You definitely have to play smart with them. I usually tend to get them killed a lot because I don't micromanage them too well. 1 or 2 shots and you should be repositioning them. But yeah, that's why I've got 6. So these are definitely a must for this deck. Now I do have 1 unit of the M10A1 Destroyer. Those come in Phase C. Well, 1 card. There's 3 units that I can bring in. They have a 76.2 millimeter accuracy 5, 13 AP main gun. They have very, very low armor, so it's best to put them, you know, tucked in with maybe a couple other tanks or maybe a couple vehicles that you want to roll up first, like a half track or something you don't really mind losing, so that it can get a couple shots on any enemy tanks before it you know, gets blown up. You do not want these things targeted because typically what you're going to be using them against, although they can destroy it, what you're using it against can destroy these too. So very, very risky. So there is the anti-tank tab, which this one I rely on quite heavily with this 2nd Infantry deck. Next we have anti-air. Now, if you guys have noticed, the state of the game is very, very heavy in late game aircraft. Usually when you're playing against the Axis, late game Phase C, you're going to see tons of aircraft because both the 91st and the 17th have just an astronomical amount of aircraft that they can bring in. So I think if I do end up dropping, where was it? If I end up dropping one of these bazookas, I may end up bringing in another unit of anti-aircraft because 2 things happen. Number 1, although this is more than enough for a match, if I'm not paying attention and I lose a couple of them, I actually need to be bringing more in, because what the enemy can do to you with aircraft is just devastate all your infantry. They can keep pushing back your tanks, and it's really going to cause you a lot of problems. So Phase A, we have, everybody knows these, 2 Bofors, or 2 cards of 2 Bofors in Phase A. These are actually really, really good due to the 40 millimeter. I like 40 millimeter and 37 millimeters better than I like the, where are they? I think it's the M16s. These, I haven't really gotten a lot of use out of them, but they only have, how many do they have? 4. Okay, so they have 4 of these 50 cals. I don't know. I needed, before I pass judgment on them, I should probably play them a little bit more because I haven't really. I've primarily been sticking to the M15s, so maybe I'll throw these in the deck one of these days. But like I said, right now, because late game aircraft is so strong, although you might not bring these Bofors in Phase A, at least have them coming in Phase B. Well, even with the 91st and with the 17th, they're pushing in Phase A with aircraft already as well. So you at least want to have one out there to hopefully shake and push off aircraft before they're able to deliver their payloads and destroy your stuff. So next we have the M15, which everybody's seen, I'm sure. It's 37 millimeter main gun. The nice thing about this is it can actually fire at infantry as well. So if you have it, in a pretty good position, it can provide cover for your troops. The only drawback is you better have some supply nearby because it will burn through that ammunition quick. So that is one thing to remember. If you are going to use this thing to cover your troops or put it in a position to where it can see enemy troops, make sure you've got some supply. So of course I have 2 of those just in case, but we may go with another one because we don't want to continue losing anti-aircraft, especially in the current meta. Artillery. This tab I have actually grown to like a lot more, and not so much because of things like the 105 howitzers, which I do have in the deck, but I have definitely changed my opinion on offboard artillery as well as mortars. So in Phase A, we bring in a unit or a card of 60 millimeter mortars, which are very, very good to support your infantry. Although they have very short range with only 900 meters, they have an incredible rate of fire at 13 rounds per minute, and man, can they do some work. In addition to that, I believe this is the smoke round, so they can drop a smoke round as well, which is very, very nice. The smoke round will allow your infantry to push into buildings and whatnot, and I just recently got myself into the habit of using smoke before pushing on cities or tree lines and things like that with my infantry, and man, it helps out quite a bit, especially if you're dropping smoke, pushing a napalm or your rangers into a tree line, and they just burn out everything that's in there. So those are really good. The 107s are similar to the 60 millimeters. The big difference is they have a lower rate of fire, higher HE damage, and longer range. Now, I skipped the 81 millimeters because I figured if I have 60s and I have 107s, why do I need 81s? Pretty simple. 81s are basically exactly that. They're right in the middle of the 60s and between the 60s and the 107s. And at the time, if I do end up ever running out of 2 107s, I'm probably already in Phase B, which at that point I can then start bringing in my 105 howitzers. Now, the M2A1 105s are very, very good. They don't, unfortunately, have as much range as the howitzers or the artillery for the 17th. I don't know if they're called howitzers, but the artillery for the 17th has up to 4,000 meter range, which you definitely have to be careful of return fire. And if they are using a lot of artillery, you're not going to be able to hit them with yours, which is rather unfortunate because they outrange you by so much. The 105s are fantastic. They do an excessive amount of HE damage. The rate of fire is pretty slow, but with 15 HE damage, that's very, very strong. So I wonder, how do I, there we go, switch over here. I should probably be doing it this way. Now, for a long time, I've been saying with offboard artillery, I am not a fan of offboard artillery at all. I've been saying that for, I don't even know, probably the first 10 or 15 episodes that I've posted on YouTube. I love offboard artillery now, and why I started to like them so much is because they were being used so heavily and so effectively against me. Once the 17th came out and they got their Phase A offboard artillery, oh man, that stuff can hurt. So I have put a M4A1 into my deck. This thing is, the unfortunate thing is it doesn't have much after the artillery has expired. You get three shots with artillery, 155 millimeter, and then you're all done. So rate of fire, HE is 16. Thing is really, really strong. You place it right where there's maybe an infantry advance, or place it on a town where there's a whole bunch of infantry, and this thing will devastate them. And if it doesn't destroy a bunch of them, it'll at least make them all fall back. But like I said, the only problem is you're stuck with 2 machine guns, or 3 machine guns, 2 7.62s and 1 50 cal at the end of your 3 offboard artillery uses. Next, in Phase C, for only 100 points, you get this M3 OP, which is basically the same thing. You're getting, well, not the same thing. It's offboard artillery, but it's 203 millimeters, 22 HE, which is significantly higher. And is that a better rate of fire? I didn't quite see if that, what's the rate of fire on this? 13, no. The rate of fire is lower, but again, higher HE, so very, very strong. The only thing I dislike about this is, as you can tell, once you've used your 3, this is a worthless vehicle. It basically move it to the very back of your deployment zone, especially if you're playing destruction, and just don't let it get destroyed. So there we go for my artillery tab, which I have, I'm still fiddling around with it a little bit, but so far I'm really enjoying what I have here. Next, actually, guys, here's a question I have for you. So I have yet to even test out these xylophones. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of these things. I did have, well, rocket artillery I've used a little bit in the 3rd Armor deck, but I haven't really tried these at all. The biggest thing I didn't like about them is they would run out of ammunition so fast, and they would take so long to fire. So let me know if these guys are any good. I am going to eventually test them out, but I haven't started using them quite yet. So if you've had any success, definitely let me know. Next, on to air. So over here, all I have done is basically P-47 Thunderbolts. Now, the only difference is the Phase C P-47 has the 127 millimeter rockets. The Phase Bs are both just anti-fighter. Now, the reason I chose the P-47 over the P-38 is due to the resilience. Although the speed, well, actually the speed is better. The agility is, I'm not sure what's better, good or medium. I think good is better. So the P-38 is definitely a good fighter, but it does have bad resilience compared to medium resilience. So I kind of went with the resilience on the P-47. That does limit me in Phase A to not having any aircraft, but because I wanted to have more resilience in these fighters and to be able to counter what the enemy is pushing out in terms of fighters, I opted for the P-47s. And then the Phase C ones, at first I had 3 units of P-47s that were only air-to-air P-47s. I decided, well, not air-to-air, but anti-fighter. I decided to bring in the rocket P-47s just because there are those few occasions where I'd like to maybe stop in advance, push back a tank, something like that. So we have 6 P-47 Thunderbolts with the 8 12.7 millimeter machine guns, and then we have 2 of the P-47 Thunderbolts with the 8 machine guns, and then 10 127 millimeter rockets. So that's about it, guys. I mean, that's my 2nd infantry deck. Well, let's see if I can do this. My general strategy is to push out infantry as much as I can and use my assault infantry to help the rifles, and use the medium machine guns to provide fire support for the assault infantry. So rifles go first, assault infantry second to burn out any infantry, and the machine guns, of course, for fire support. And then over in artillery, we have the 60 and the 107 millimeter mortars to provide that extra suppression for any infantry or any light vehicles that are around, and even some tanks. They can put some morale damage on them, put some stress on them. I usually don't bring much else in besides 2 units of Marauders, the rifles, Ranger Assaults, and 1 medium machine gun. Support, I'll usually bring a T-30, an M3 Command, anti-tank. I'm more often than not going between usually 2, sometimes 3 if I switch it up a little bit, 57 millimeter anti-tank guns. Depends on how many 12th SS Panzer divisions the opponents are bringing in. Anti-air, sometimes I bring in 1 Bofors, but more often than not, I just wait until I start seeing the enemy bring in aircraft. And then, of course, we've already talked about artillery and aircraft. I don't bring in any aircraft until usually Phase B, sometimes a little later on in Phase B, if my anti-aircraft is not doing a good enough job of pushing them off before they come in. I try to sneak in and snipe out a couple. So that's it, guys. I hope you like this little review of the deck I used in episode 17. If you have any suggestions or any comments about any of the questions I had, or you found any different uses for any units, definitely let me know in the comments. If you guys like this video, you know what to do. Make sure and smash that like button. If you want to see more like it, definitely subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading as often as I can. And thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Bye-bye.